everybody. Welcome to another episode of the MMA Mobsters, brought to you by Cell Saviors and Dimene Incorporated, or Dimene.com. So, of course, joining me, as always, is the Choven one, Joshua Choven. Josh, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm good, Pat. I have a Jufro situation that's getting a little bit out of control, but shout out Jufro. Other than that, I am good. So Militech, ever the professional, has convinced me to get this whole setup, and he couldn't have been more right. I look wonderful. Just there's the issue of the Jufro. Does it stay or does it go, Pat Militech?
Well, you are my bro, so make that rhyme. There you go.
I'm your Jufro bro.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. So let's talk a little bit of news. Let's flow right into it. Talk about last week. Talk about our picks. Go down the list a little bit. We didn't have a great week, and that's not often that happens. But you got to own it, right?
Yeah, my first is for me personally my first losing week betting UFC this year. So I'll face the music a little bit. I'll also kind of put in there that it is my first losing card this year. I think it was like card number 10. So that kind of goes right along with our 90% or whatever winning percentage that goes up and down. But
sure.
Yeah, Izzy hurt, and we will get into that. Was looking good. Had a lot.
Had Pfeiffer in trouble. Had his leg trashed.
Had Pfeiffer on one leg. I was very nervous about Chase Hooper because, like I said, this is a crazy stat, Militech. Every fight in the UFC, Chase Hooper has been a large favorite. He's lost like 5 fights in the UFC, so this does happen a decent amount. Bulgari did look good. That was another underdog pick for us. What was obviously the crazy finish with Grasso and Macy Barber? What was a fight that stood out to you that I maybe haven't hit on yet?
Well, I mean, Grasso's capable of greatness, but Macy Barber being 10-2 in the UFC going into that, a lot of momentum, looking great, and getting just straight out clipped with that power straight punch and spun around like a top and then falling right into a rear choke. And then, the poor girl looking like, she was deceased laying there after attempting a single leg on the referee, which I've seen many times in, injured fighters doing that. But no, you never like to see somebody get hurt at that level. Look, people are going to get rocked. That's the way it's going to be, but that's the nature of the game. But yeah, Grasso, that's huge. I mean, that's a huge win for her moving back towards, title contention.
And I wanted to ask you, Pat, so that fight was pretty clearly for a title shot, and they wanted Barber to win because Grasso and Shevchenko have already fought 3 times. First time, Grasso sprains the crazy upset. Then they fight to kind of a weird draw in the second fight, and then Valentina really outclasses her, wins all 5 rounds. So if you're the UFC, you've been very involved with the UFC a big chunk of your life. What do you do here? Do you just book the 4th fight and hope that Grasso looks more competitive?
Well, I
mean, she earned it.
Given the memory of Americans, which is very short, I mean, why not, right? So, I mean, their memory, and I'm not trying to be condescending, but look, just a month ago there was some sort of dilemma going on that nobody remembers, right? So how many people really remember, the past 3 fights? But Shevchenko and Grasso are going to be a great fight no matter what, right? And Shevchenko, who I think, in my humble opinion, is the best female fighter in history, and certainly has been pound for pound one of the best fighters, men or women, overall. That's sure, make it happen. And the marketability doesn't change. The fact that they were kind of moving Macy towards that positioning. The Latino-speaking world, the South American, Central American, all of those markets, of course, they need their stars as well, which they have plenty of them. But so Grasso's just one, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I wanted to get your take. That was an insane finish, and that has to be up there, not just for the women, but for all fighters, period.
Yeah.
So good for Good for Grasso. I give the women fighters a hard time sometimes. With some of them, the elite can crack and do all those things. What's a finish that maybe you saw cage side, or you were either on the delivering end or the receiving end of maybe an old school finish that was like you were like, oh my god, is he dead? Something like that. Does anything come to mind?
Well, I think Hughes Carlos Newton one was probably potentially the greatest finish in UFC history. Just the nature of both of them were technically unconscious when they hit the mat, and Matt went for broke. Matt Hughes went for broke, and put that slam in there to try to knock out Carlos Newton and save himself before he went unconscious. That's a ballsy move. I mean, that's going for broke. And while he was incoherent, his eyes were open and he was looking around, and luckily the referee didn't recognize that both were unconscious. But nonetheless, Hughes stood up, was the new champion, and had to ask us what had happened, and we informed him that he was the new champion, and that's when he started jumping around. So anyway, but Pfeiffer, taking advantage of Izzy hot dogging it a little bit, feeling too confident, overconfident, and making that mistake against Joe Pfeiffer is that's his strategic mistake. That's the way it is, right? You can't do that.
Sorry, I still have goosebumps from the Hughes story. I never knew the side of it that Hughes didn't even know what happened. I imagine Newton didn't know what happened, but that's nuts that the guy who won didn't know what happened. We'll definitely have to clip that, Lee. Just another fantastic story from Pat Miletich. Yeah, and moving on to the main event. You and I are both pretty confident in Izzy, and he proved our confidence right for the most part, and then just completely fell apart in the second round. And Izzy is probably going to join you in the UFC Hall of Fame someday, unless he does something awful. He was so dominant for such a long time. And I guess my biggest issue is, Pat, and I wanted to get your take on this, because I'm kind of searching for answers here. We saw Izzy last Saturday hurt Pfeiffer multiple times to the leg, even to the point where Pfeiffer was limping, clearly, going back to his stool in the first round. Izzy probably won the first round, but had all the momentum going into the second. And then facing a guy with a ton of power on one leg, he decides now is a good time to drop his hands to his waist, almost kind of showboat, and let Pfeiffer hit him so he could hit him a few times back. This guy, his whole career, the one diss on him has been, yeah, he wins, but he's boring. He kind of puts on his running shoes but no, he's not boring. He's technical. He's very conservative. His whole career, the fight with Cannonier, kind of boring, but got the job done. The fight against Romero, kind of boring, got the job done. Starched Robert Whittaker in their first fight. The second fight was more conservative, but he got the job done. Against Marvin Vettori, kind of conservative, got the job done. Where was this guy on Saturday, Pat? Where was I'm going to take it easy. I could knock him out, but I'm going to pull my punches a little bit. I'm going to be smart. I'm going to be technical. What happened? Is age catching up to him and he can't do the crazy ninja shit he did before? I'm looking for answers. Can you give me any?
I think it comes down to this: is once you've been knocked out a few times, the button's easier and easier to push. So his maybe lack of memory or understanding his vulnerability after some wars, has added to this probably. So where as a young man, you can go in and take shots and exchange and go to war, all of those good things that make the crowd stand up and have a blast and enjoy an incredible fight. And you're caught up in that energy and loving it yourself because you can take massive amounts of abuse. Once you hit a certain point, you've been knocked out a few times. You're not as powerful as you used to be. You're not as put together as you used to be. You just can't take those shots, and that's just the way it is. So it's a flaw that all humans experience, and certainly in combat sports and other places in life where it's, we don't bounce like we did when we were young. We'll just say that, right? It's just the way it is. So, so anyway, everybody made weight for this card. Let's talk about that a little bit. Congratulations to all the athletes. Great job on that.
That's rare. We usually have at least one or two weight misses, even a cancellation, but it looks like we're all good to go for this card at the UFC Apex.
Well, remember that they just let go of right now her name is evading me, who missed weight by 8 pounds, and they let her go immediately after that. Maybe that reminded everybody that, well, making weight is part of your job and you might lose it if you don't. So go ahead and, work the pounds off if you have to. So a little bit of that involved. So congratulations to everybody making weight, right?
Yes,
And
sir. And I guess maybe one more news topic from last week. It was even though disappointing to finally lose money on a card, it was a crazy card, UFC Seattle was. I guess one more news topic that I wanted to get your take on.
yeah.
We had a retirement fight, and we had kind of the rare double retirement fight with Mike Chiesa and Nico Price. Now, Chiesa was clearly the A side. I'm not entirely sure why, no disrespect to the man, but Chiesa and Nico Price have essentially had the same career. They basically both went 500 in the UFC. They're both veterans. Chiesa has kind of gotten more involved in the broadcasting side. People seem to like him. The UFC is very political, so if Dana likes you, you will get better treatment.
I never knew that. I never knew that.
I forgot who I was talking to.
I never knew anything about that. So anyway, Chiesa and Price, post-fight.
Chiesa gets a send-off like he's a war hero, Pat. His family's crying. They're showing the montage. I get it. The guy won Ultimate Fighter like 1,000,000 years ago, and he's a better man than I, but probably fell short of his lofty expectations. He was a gatekeeper, never came close to fighting for a title. And then Nico Price is standing there, and mind you, Nico Price was promised he would get at least a chance to say, thanks for everything, I love you, bye. Nothing. So pretty big disrespect to Nico Price, and I understand, I mean, trust me, here we are making sure we keep this episode under an hour. I get it, but come on, disrespectful to Nico?
Not necessary, and that's just, that's the way it goes. That's the nature of the beast. So to any of our listeners out there, please put together a montage of Nico Price highlights, and we will play it, and we're going to have him on an episode soon to talk about his career and celebrate his accolades, not to diss Michael Chiesa because he had a great career, but more to celebrate Nico Price because they dissed him so severely inside the octagon in front of thousands of people. Nonetheless, all right, moving on to the fights this weekend. Let's go with first fight, Dakota Hope against Kai Kamaka. Both guys are unranked, and well, the 1-2 record of Kamaka in the UFC, while Dakota Hope 1-0 in the LFA. I lean certainly towards Hope in the hands division, the striking area, I should say. And I'll let you kind of break it down a little bit further before I add anything back in.
Yeah, I'll just start by saying let's win some freaking bets. That's a
good idea. That's a good idea because obviously your gas and lights are still on, thankfully, after losing.
I've done quite a bit of winning this year, but let's win some freaking fights. So it looks like to me that Kamaka has odds have dropped just a little bit, opened up at -170 on FanDuel. He's -158 now. Keep in mind, this is a guy who's kind of been in and out of the UFC. I believe this is either trip number 2, possibly even 3, in and out of the UFC for him. So with Dakota Hope is younger, less UFC fights, but the line movement seems to be kind of creeping in his direction. I've never been a huge Kamaka fan. That's why he keeps getting cut from the UFC. Seems like they were kind of scrambling to put some fights together here on what is a somewhat watered-down card. We had a huge card with UFC Seattle last week. We have a pay-per-view next week with championship fights. This is kind of some filler. Give me hope. He's younger, and I think we've kind of seen Kamaka's ceiling. So give me the slight +125 underdog Dakota Hope.
Okay, and I actually think he's got a lot of momentum. Both guys have had decent competition in my opinion. In their the opponents that they've fought with, how their records sit, things like that. So, but Hope has a lot of momentum. 11-1 overall, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. So I will agree with you there, and I'll go with Dakota Hope as an underdog pick in that. All right, moving on to Barbosa and Gatto. Neither one spectacular in their UFC records. batting 500 or just above, depending on who we're talking about. One thing I will say about Gatto, loses to folks with good, solid records. So not saying that Barbosa at 8-4 is an amazing record or anything. So, is this the loser gets cut and sent home? I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah, I've certainly had some frustrating Barbosa fights. She seems to look good for maybe one of the 3 rounds, and then the next 2 are razor close. The line movement seems to agree here, Pat. Barbosa opened up at -150. She's now -125. This fight is essentially approaching pick'em status, where they're both going to essentially be the same odds. So for that reason, give me Gatto. I think that this is, most female fights are very close. This is right there. And if I can get a slightly better price on Gatto, that's where I'm going to go. So I'm going to open up this card with 2 small underdogs. Give me Gatto plus 110 on Caesars.
Plus money at 110. Okay, so that's who you're picking. Are you betting on that fight?
Probably, I would rank both of these as solid 1-unit bets. That's
Okay.
1 out of 5 stars confidence. So I'm not betting the Audi on it, but betting they're both gonna be small bets for me to open the card.
Confident that your fart will not be a shart.
You got it.
There's a lot of if in there, bud.
But if it is, it's not the end of the world because they're just 1-unit bets. But
Right. Okay, moving on to Bekaev versus Gore. Number 55 in the world versus number 55. I'm not going to say this just out and out, but from my observation, Gore at 5-4 against a guy that's 20-4. It's almost like, I'm just going to say this without a throttle or standing on the throttle, without a filter. That Gore, I don't know who's managing this young man, but they've done a horrible job, because when I look through his fight career, they have always matched him with people with massive amounts of experience compared to his record, and he's been thrown to the wolves. So I don't know who's managing him. I don't know who's done that to him, but he should probably look to find new management of people that are going to look out for him a little better. Sorry for my condemnation, but I'm going to be honest about this. When I see that sort of thing going on, where kids are getting thrown to the wolves, or people who can't estimate talent based on experience in comparison, there's some problems there. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, no, and be unfiltered as much as you want there, Pat. That's when we get our best stuff. I would say, from my point of view, this is more of a Hunter Campbell or Mick or Sean telling him, well, Trayshawn, you're 5-4, so we can cut you, or you can take this fight against this killer. And if you're as good as you say you are, then you'll win, and you're right back in the UFC. So I about 90% sure that's what's going on. Is it's either you take the fights that we give you where you're set up to be slaughtered, or you can go fight somewhere else.
Well, and look, I would love to see Gore win this fight and shit all over their plans, to be honest with you. I have to root for the underdog here, because, at 5 that's 9 fights. In my humble opinion, even at 9-0, somebody probably isn't, well, modern times they're ready for the UFC, but in reality, that's not a ton of experience to be in there anyway.
Yeah.
At that level. So anyway, you're picking Bekaev, it sounds like, pretty easily. What's the odds currently on this?
The odds are climbing, and I think it's more people. Now, Bekaev is coming off his first loss into the UFC, but it's to our guy, Belgari, who just looked fantastic last week, and Belgari was underestimated by someone, the odds makers, the people in the UFC, that this guy looks like a future title contender. So no shame really in that loss. Bekaev opened at -560 on Bet Rivers Sportsbook. He's now -670. That's almost a 100-point climb. That's basically the cherry on top that I need to lock Bekaev in as a pretty confident pick, parlay piece, lock, etc.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Okay, moving on to Haley Cowan versus Pereira, number 29 versus number 30 in the world. Haley Cowan at 7-4. Pereira at 5-1, 0-1 in the UFC. Haley Cowan 0-2. She had a hell of a run with the LFA. She went 5-2 with the LFA. I called some of her fights. Very good athlete, and but Haley Cowan has faced some fairly tough competition, at least comparable to her experience level. Where when I look at Pereira, her competition has been kind of less than stellar. We'll just say that. So, what are your thoughts to expand upon that, buddy?
Pat, is this the infamous sister of the greatest MMA fighter alive right now, Alex Pereira, or is that Eileen Pereira? Sorry, maybe our producer can check on that.
I'm not sure, but you could fill the entire population of the state of Iowa with people named Pereira from Brazil. So you could just replace the 3 million people in Iowa with people named Pereira from Brazil. They wouldn't like the weather, I could fucking assure you. But nonetheless, so I'm not sure. I haven't dug into that.
I think part of me is happy that I don't know, because that's a trap that maybe the casual bettor can fall into, thinking, oh, this guy is Kamaru Usman's brother. He's going to be a champion too. No, it doesn't really work that way. So we look at her on her merits, not who she is biologically related to or married to, etc. So yeah,
Pereira's sister. Sorry to interrupt. That Eileen, it is Eileen.
And she's fighting on the MVP card. That's what I thought. So she's fighting on the Rousey Carano Diaz card. We'll get to that in May. So
okay,
different Alice Pereira, whatever. She opened up at -120 on Caesars. She's now -140, -110 on Bet Rivers. She's also -140 there. So yeah, a little bit of movement, maybe about a 35% move. I like Pereira here. Cowan's good. Both girls are pretty good on paper. I'm going to follow the line movement, though. Pereira will be another 1-unit bet. I'm going to go with Pereira here to get the job done, not with a ton of confidence.
Okay. I'm going to lean towards Cowan, the Texan, and so we'll give her. So we're split on our picks. I'm going to go with Cowan, and hope she can turn the ship around with that 0-2 record right now in the UFC. All right, moving on to Lando Venata versus Darius Flowers. Darius Flowers, a guy from Iowa, a very heavy-handed guy, not great on the ground. He's lost by submission several times. I think he's lost, 6 times to submissions? Yes. Just falling into him. It's like, it's unfortunate because he does have a lot of athletic ability. He's got a ton of power. He scored a lot of knockouts. And Venata, I've called some of his fights. Venata will absolutely put you to sleep if you give him the chance. Guy with a very powerful punch. So what's your breakdown on these two characters?
Yeah, well, speaking to the Darius Flowers ground game, he fought Michael Johnson a couple years ago. I've never seen Michael Johnson wrestle in his life. Michael Johnson took Darius Flowers down 7 times in that fight.
Yeah.
Hasn't wrestled again since. So that's just kind of the state. Yeah, good guy. Darius Flowers friended me on Facebook last week, so I have to be nice to him since we're Facebook friends now.
Because he will hit you. Because he will hit you hard.
He will. Okay. I believe you. He's in Mason City, I think, or something.
Yes.
Yeah. So involved with North Iowa fights. So yeah, where the heck did Lando Venata come back into our lives from? Because I am trying to figure out. He last fought in 2023. So we're talking a 3-year, and it's not like he's been in the caged aggressions or the LFAs grinding. No, he just hasn't fought for 3 freaking years. So which Venata are we getting? And I think with the betting here, the reason Venata is a decent favorite is because people just don't want to bet on Flowers. He's, I believe, 0-3 in the UFC, and he's had competitive moments, but once it goes to the ground, it's pretty much done. Venata, not a huge wrestling threat. He's more of a karate, spin and shit kind of guy. Talk to me, Pat, about a 3-year layoff. Obviously, you've had a much longer than a 3-year layoff, but talk about that. Venata, I believe, is maybe 38, 39, so getting a little bit older. Talk about just randomly taking 3 years off. That could be a good thing or a bad thing, I guess.
Well, I mean, whatever the cause of the layoff, right? Whether it's, hey, I got a great job, I didn't need to fight, or illness or injuries or family stuff or whatever the case, it happened. So 3 years off, there's a lot of time to reevaluate, refine your game, get better, be more well-rounded if he was training that whole time. So it's hard to say exactly how to evaluate that, but I will say this, that both guys have the potential to knock each other out. And so, Venata's never been finished by knockout. Flowers has only been finished one, but both pack a punch and can hurt each other. So, I mean, this one in my mind I'm going with Flowers early. And if it goes past the first round and a half, Venata gets my nod, so that's kind of where I'm at with it.
I like it. I think that you're spot on. It could be a live betting opportunity, as Flowers does seem to slow down a little bit after a furious first round. Venata opened up at minus 260 on FanDuel. He's minus 230 now. So a little drop in odds, nothing to sound the sirens about. But this is a hard fight for me, Pat. I'm going to lean Venata, but it's not with a great deal of confidence. And it'll be interesting to see what happens on Saturday.
Yeah, well, and if Flowers does see this episode, I think you're fighting a guy that just took 3 years off from fighting. I would take that personally. I would say the guy hasn't fought in 3 years, and I'm the underdog. Okay, we're going to go put this guy to sleep, and bet on yourself. By the way, bet on yourself, right? Or have a friend do it. Whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
So, all right, moving on to Costa and Nicole. Nickel, 14-5 versus 8-2. Stewart's 0-2, or Stewart Nicole is 0-2 in the UFC, where Costa is 2-3. There's, propensity by both of them to get knockouts. Costa has almost gotten knocked out as many times as he's scored knockouts at the same time. I lean a little bit towards Costa on the ground, and the quality of opponents for Nickel is low. For Costa is mediocre, are the exact words that I wrote. So I don't know where that is. That's not an accurate. If we're on a bombing campaign, Josh, we're not precisely bombing with lasers. We're carpet bombing everything, because
Yes.
I don't know where randomly I'm going to pick on that one. And if my life depended on it, I'd probably say, okay, go ahead and string up the rope, because I'll probably get it wrong.
Yeah. And in this case, I'm with you. I'm gonna kind of chicken out and say, oh, just give me the minus 425 favorite. But it's not with a huge deal of confidence. Costa has been in the UFC much longer than this Nickel kid has.
And that's the one difference, right? That's the one difference that weighs in for us.
And the UFC seems to, especially more than ever, seems to love these veteran versus prospect fights. And I get it, because it can be Costa. I mean, look at Pantoja in that division. Pantoja took several losses before he figured it out and basically became unbeatable there for a while. So,
and this is a perfect example. Sorry to interrupt you, because I know you're on a roll, but this is the perfect example to me of a guy who's 8-0. They go, bro, you want to fight in the UFC? And he goes, yes, absolutely, I want to fight in the UFC. Takes his next two fights, loses them in the UFC. Now he's 8-2, looking at getting cut. If he loses this one, ends up 8-3, 0-3 in the UFC, you got spun out when you had a very promising potential career at 8-0, instead of going to 15-0 or more, on the regional circuits and lower, just step below, and staying there and getting more experience, so that you have staying power, you have experience, you've had tougher fights, and you're there to stay until you win a world title, or at least fight for one. He's looking at, getting spun out, chewed up by the machine and spit out. So I don't know what needs to be said to management, what needs to be said to, like, what do we want to say? That carrot being dangled in front of athletes and management of, oh my God, you're in the UFC. It's not what it's cracked up to be if you're not ready to go in. It's just not. right?
So you want to be a UFC fighter. Yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah, and that there's something else we're doing I think fine on time. So I'm gonna say, yeah, Costa's gonna be my pick, but it's not with a great degree of confidence. Let's make him a unit and a half bet. And Pat, what you were talking about reminded me of the Izzy thing, and I kind of want to ask one more question, then we'll put a bow on that. Let's say that you're Izzy's management. He's lost four in a row, four pretty badly. Strickland embarrassed him. He was beaten Dricus du Plessis, then got careless. Boom, wrapped up, fight's over. Same thing with Imavov. He's looking great. Boom, just flatlined. And Izzy never gets finished. And then this fight looked great in the first round, then seemed to just kind of be lost, like he'd never been there. And then he gets on the mic, he says, I'm not effing leaving, channeling Wolf of Wall Street. I'm going to be here forever. Well, Izzy, you're 0-4, bud. So they let Ferguson and Cowboy Cerrone, I think, lose 8 in a row. BJ Penn's in there, too. If you're his management, I mean, put that hat on, Pat, because you've worn that hat several times. Are you saying, dude, just get as much money as you can and get out? Or are you saying, we need to take some time off, man? What do you say to Izzy right now?
Well, I mean, something that should have been said to him after a couple of losses, the first, couple was, start paying attention to your fundamentals. Stop fucking around. Stop showboating, and win the fights and get your money. And look, he's probably got enough money he'll never be able to spend anyway, unless he's truly careless, right? Whatever. But yeah, if you want to have a legacy, that you go out as a winner, that's something that he should probably pay attention to. Look. Once you've climbed the mountain and won the title and been the number one fighter in the world for a certain amount of time, not a flash in the pan. He was not a flash in the pan. He was there for a while, to say the least.
Yeah.
Once you've climbed that mountain, you move on a lot of times. And a lot of times they don't even know they've moved on. Like the hunger's not quite there. And you have to think to yourself, and Matt Hughes and I talked about this quite a bit. Once you win the title, that could have been luck. You still had to get there to win the title. But defending the title, when the real pressure starts, that's when there's a target on your back, and you have to always remember what was the hunger you had in the climb. And all of those guys that are climbing that mountain are targeting you. You're the peak. You are the peak of the mountain, and they're targeting you. So you have to remember that. And that either keeps you hungry or the pressure gets to you or whatever happens in that process. But once the mountain has been climbed, sometimes it's time to take a freaking paraglider off that son of a bitch and get off. You know what I mean? So,
yes.
Anyway. All right.
I do.
Moving on to, what's that? Thomas Peterson?
Yes, I do. And
Jeremy Pat.
Yeah.
Somebody with the last name Pat confuses me, of course. Jeremy Pat and Thomas Peterson, number 14 versus number 30 in the world. So you're number 30 in the world at 6-0. Is that what I'm reading correctly?
Yeah, and that's again the Tapology rankings, which are not official, but they may have flubbed that one because I have no idea how he's. It could be. Is it maybe number 30 local? I highly doubt but it could be. I don't know. Anyway, the odds are fairly tight here, Pat. This is a tough one to pick. Guilherme is minus 108. Peterson is minus 112. I'm going to go Peterson because the line movement has kind of flipped him from a small underdog to now a small favorite. He opened up at like plus 110 on Caesars, looks like. Now he's minus 125. That's a slight underdog flip to favorite. Again, I'm not sounding alarms. The British aren't coming, but I like Peterson. Again, it's probably a unit and a half bet. Anytime a guy flips from underdog to favorite, I pay attention. In this case, it was a very small move, but still, I like. Are you riding the Peterson train with me, or are you like Pat Guilherme?
I'm only gonna. Considering he's 1-0 in LFA, 1-0 in the UFC, at 6-0 you don't have enough competition to even measure the metrics. Somewhat comparable to, it's such a toss-up for me because Peterson did well in the LFA, 6-1. He's a solid guy. He's 2-3 in the UFC, of course, but That because of the experience, having fought, more in the
Yeah,
UFC, having a little tougher competition, somewhat. I'll lean towards Peterson with you a little bit.
I like it.
Okay, yeah, not strongly, not strongly. All right, moving on to Rushala against Delano, unranked versus number 75. Yeah, when you think and you say, "Hey, I'm number 75 in the world," it's got to be nice to be ranked, but there's 74 people ahead of you to charge through somehow. That's a
Right.
lot of bodies in that weight division ahead of him. Rushala's 8-1 in KSW, which KSW is not necessarily an easy organization.
No,
There's
I
some
would
tough
put them
characters.
top five. So UFC, PFL, I guess, but someone please take over PFL as number two. And MVP, I would already put in the top five. Then Cage Warriors, LFA, KSW. So yeah, they're all a little step ahead of your basic, backwater promotion.
Yeah. So, and then you go to Delano, who's 6-1 in the LFA. Contender Series 1-0, which, you get a mix of whatever's in there. Rashala's had very solid competition, good competition for Delano, even though I think the level for Rashala is a little higher, having weathered the KSW, organization, things like that. So tell me how you break this down.
The line movement is sending off a few alarms with Delano here, like he may be a little bit overhyped. He opens up at minus 400, which is a big price tag for a guy that I don't think has necessarily earned it so far. He's getting dropped pretty heavily. He's at minus 330 now, and I think will continue dropping before the fight tomorrow. Probably ends up at maybe a minus 300, maybe even into the 200s. So yeah, that's making Rochula look pretty juicy here. I think his best odds are plus 280. And this is looking closer and closer to a pick'em fight. So you're getting a deal on Ruchala. And yeah, two guys that we just don't know a ton about in the UFC. And so give me the very appetizing price tag of plus 280 on Ruchala for one unit, and we'll see what happens. I think he's a
Yeah,
very live dog here, Pat.
yeah. For plus money, I think you're obviously spot on, and so I lean that way as well for considering the money. All right, moving on to McMillan and Zashini. Zashini 11-4, McMillan 9-0 overall. Contender Series, he's 1-0. Zashini's 0-1 in the UFC, and I think in the KO category, I think I lean towards Zashini a little bit. Sub department, McMillan, he's 5-0 in that category, 3-0 in the KO department. Obviously, with that unblemished record, competition for both of them, meh,
Yep.
meh.
Yeah, these odds will probably shock you, Pat. Tommy McMillan is a whopping minus 1200, minus 1400, even as high as minus 1600 favorite. I'm not entirely sure what he's done to merit such a massive price tag, but as longtime listeners to the show know, I've accumulated several, I guess, life hacks with UFC betting, being a pro over the past few years. One of those life hacks, Pat Militech, is when a fighter, especially male fighters, hit the plateau of a 4-digit favorite. That means minus 1,000 or higher. Minus 900, I really start getting interested when they hit that minus 1,000 plateau. They win over the past 8 years, 98% of the time. There are two fighters who have lost as minus 1,000 favorites or higher. Those are Peyton Talbot, most recently, and this guy just fought. I'll think of his name here in a second. But the only two guys have lost in the past 8 years. So it's not a foolproof system, but these guys, when they get to that level, they seem to win and they seem to dominate. So, yep, I'm going to lock in Tommy McMillan here at, I think the best odds you can get are maybe 1,200 on Bet Rivers, but that price is just going to keep on going up. So I'd say lock that in now.
So
What do you think?
So hold on, you bet $1,200. What do you win back? Not including the 1,200 you put
100.
in. Oh yeah,
100.
$100, right? So, is it worth the risk of $1,200 to you?
Yes, because they win. The odds should be higher. Whenever you get to that minus 1,000 or higher plateau as a male UFC fighter, you win over 98% of the time, which is which is nuts.
Yeah, and most people are going to look at that math and go, God, why would I risk that much money to win so little? But considering the odds, it's like, well, when you put $1,200 into the stock market for the percentages you normally pull out on stock, it's comparable to a sure bet in the stock market, even though that's a gamble, right? We know that.
Yeah.
But okay, so McMillan at minus 1,200 is a shoe-in.
It certainly looks like it, yes.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, moving on to Estevan versus Ewing. Estevan, 14-0, 3-0 in the UFC, 4-0 in the KO department, 3 subs, and very solid opponents for the most part on the way up the ladder to 14-0. Ethan Ewing at 9-2, LFA 1-1, UFC 1-0. He's got 6 KOs, buddy, and 1-1 in the sub department. He's won 9 straight, though, so he's got a lot of momentum. Ethan Ewing lost some fights early. What's the odds telling you?
So Ethan Ewing, let me look here. Ethan Ewing is the hot new thing in this division. He was a big underdog, a huge underdog, like I think about plus 400. Came through, beat a big prospect just a few months ago. Now he's the big prospect. He's gone from the hunter to the hunted. It's crazy how quickly things can change in the UFC. So now Ewing is the hot prospect. He's the maybe future champion. So how does he handle that role? Well, the line movement tells us he should handle it pretty well. He opened up at minus 110 on Caesars. He has moved to minus 140. Still a lot of unknowns. What about the kid that he scored the big upset on? Maybe that kid's not as good as we think he is. So Estevan is no joke. He has graduated to more elite fighters very quickly here in just, I believe, the second UFC outing for Ethan Ewing. I'm going to ride with him. I think it's far from a lock. I'm going to go 2 units. Ethan Ewing, he keeps on soaring, but I think Estevan gives him a couple problems. I don't think it's a washout.
So, one's ranked 27th as a flyweight in the world. Ewing is ranked number 72 as a featherweight. Which weight division? I forget which they're fighting at. Is it 125, 135? Which is it?
I believe it's 125. Are you seeing Lee?
So Ethan Ewing is dropping down 10 pounds, which is a lot of weight to cut for a small person. How is that going to negatively affect him? Will he be able to keep up with the speed from Estevan, who's 14-0? That there's some detrimental things that can happen to people when they cut that much weight if they are fighting, in fact, at the lower weight division.
Yeah, they are. This is a 135 fight, so
So for Estevan, I think that's a disadvantage moving up to 135 to fight the bigger guy, Ethan Ewing, who has been on a tear, 9 straight fights. What are the odds at right now on these guys in this fight?
The odds opened up at essentially the same. They were both minus 110. Ewing has moved to minus 140. Estevan is plus 120. Estevan also 14-0. So if Ewing does get this done, he would have to hand Estevan his first loss in MMA ever.
I got to be honest with you. The fact they're fighting at Ethan Ewing's weight, his normal weight, where he's been on a tear, 9-0, last 9 fights. Estevan having to move up. Estevan obviously tired of cutting weight and making 125. It hasn't worked out for him, even though he's undefeated. Congratulations to him. Moving up to the bigger division, fighting Ewing. I think I'm leaning towards Ewing on this one.
Yeah, I like it.
Okay.
I like it. And Ewing looked very good, but once again, just kind of have to, I guess, play devil's advocate a little bit and just make sure that you're being smart. Maybe the hot
Which I'm not.
prospect.
I'm not smart.
You are very smart.
I'm not smart.
Yeah, baby. Yeah, and we'll see how good Ewing is tomorrow because he's fighting a 14-0 kid who was another hot prospect. But
Sure.
I think
Yeah.
he gets it done. But tread carefully. This is far from a 5-star bet your house on it kind of luck.
Sure. No, they're both very qualified, very tough kids. So,
Yes.
all right. Abdul Rahman Yakayev against Brendan Ribeiro. Ribeiro's number 25 in the world. Abdul is number 32. Yakayev 8-0, 17-9 for Ribeiro. Ribeiro's been KO'd 4 times. Much better on the ground, although he's 9-5 in terms of submissions. Has a propensity to take things to the ground. I haven't looked at the odds deliberately on this, but I've got to believe that is Yakayev. Is he the favorite in the betting?
So Pat, he is. He's minus 2,000 is his average price.
Okay, hey, listen. I mean, I had a hunch. There, bud. But yeah. So there's another lock for you, apparently.
Yeah. And about minus 1,500 fight doesn't go to decision. So if you parlay Yakayev to win by finish, you shrink the odds down to maybe minus 900. I mean, this is maybe first round finish. You get the odds a little closer to minus 200. But yeah, all signs point to Abdul Rahman Yakayev, which is quite a name, absolutely rolling here. Probably won't even need a second round.
So I'm looking at the rankings. Number 32 at 8-0, 17-9. Ribeiro is number 29, ranked above him. The odds have heavily gone towards the lower ranked fighter. How does that happen? Really?
That happens when, and again, these are Tapology's rankings, not the UFC's rankings. Yeah,
Sure.
It's crazy the amount of ground that you can cover. And sometimes it takes the rankings a while to catch up to that. But you were just talking about how, it must be a little daunting when you've won all these fights and you're only number 76. That's a lot of guys to go through. Well, you don't have to go through all of them. You win one big fight, all of a sudden you're top 20. So you can cut. You can fall quickly, you can rise quickly in the UFC. That's the truth.
All right, so lock in Abdul as part of your parlay, and then moving on to Verna Jandiroba against Tabitha Ricci. Tabitha Ricci at 12-3, 7-3 in the UFC. Jandiroba at 8-4 in the UFC. I mean, obviously the marketability of Ricci, they would love nothing more for her to keep winning, things like that. That seems to be the flavor, I guess, of what I've picked up on. Very solid opponents on the way up for Jandiroba, who's number 4 ranked, and I think some not as tough, but Ricci's had some fairly tough competition as well. So break that down for me, where the odds are at, where you're at.
Yeah, it's a very good observation by you, Pat. They like Ricci, and they've kind of been there, done that with Jandiroba. She fought Mackenzie Dern for the belt on that infamous Tom Aspinall getting multiple eye pokes from Cyril Gahn, and Aspinall has not been heard from since.
Yeah.
The co-main was Jandiroba versus Mackenzie Dern, and two very similar fighters, big background in jiu-jitsu, have both learned adequate striking, and Dern just was a little bit better everywhere and got the deserved win. The UFC wants Tabitha Ricci to win here. She's somewhat of an unknown. She's a little more marketable than Jandiroba is. I don't know if it gets done here. So Jandiroba actually opened up as a small dog at plus 115, has moved to minus 130. I think that's the right direction. Jandiroba can just neutralize you so easily. And that was really a credit to Mackenzie Dern that She didn't fall into the traps. Jandiroba wants to kind of lull you to sleep with her striking, get you on the ground, lay on top of you. Before you know it, the round's over. So
she's got 14 finishes though on the ground, correct?
well, sure, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Either
That's a lot
the
of
round's
finishes,
over
bro.
or you're not conscious. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So Jandiroba has been there, done that, and really seems to beat everyone except top level. We're going to see what level Tabitha Ricci is in this fight. This is a great. If Jandiroba wants to settle into the gatekeeper role, I think she'd be great at that. Give me Jandiroba here, a unit and a half. I like her at minus 130, but far from a lock.
Yeah, that's where I'm leaning as well. Jandiroba, I think she could easily pull off the sub in this match. So, what is by finish for her or by sub? What is
that's gonna be juicy, Pat, because these girls fights to go to decision. So fight goes to decision is minus 400. So Jandiroba winning by submission is plus 450. So you would turn $10 into $55, something like that.
Beautiful. I like that. That's where I would go anyway with a small wager just to have a little fun with it.
I like it.
Okay. All right. Heading on to Renato Moicano against Chris Duncan, number 34 versus number 9 Moicano in a kind of a must-win situation. He's had a bit of a slide, and to his credit, he fought a physically bigger, better wrestler when he lost one of those fights in the last few. He's 20-7 against Duncan, who's 15-2. I think solid opponents for Duncan. Moicano has faced some absolute hammers along the way. Where are you at with this fight? This is our main event, and remember, for anybody out there, pick a winner, pick a round, pick the way it ends, even if it's a decision, which would be round 5 against, of course, whether it's Moicano or Duncan, and you win. Free cell saviors and free Diamine clothing. So go ahead and break this down for us, buddy.
Yeah, it's an interesting fight. I think we're seeing maybe kind of a rock and a hard place here. You have Moicano, who was once a very elite prospect. He was in multiple fights where the winner is going to get the champ, and he always seemed to fall short there. And then he somehow kind of fell upwards with Arman Sarukian falling out, essentially fight day. And they plucked Moicano out of his fight. He finally got his title shot, gets submitted in 2 minutes against Islam Makhachev. But
yeah,
he's a fun guy. He's an entertaining guy, both in the cage and out of the cage, but hasn't quite lived up to his lofty ceiling that many thought that he would hit. Now, on the other side, we have Duncan. We're not sure how good Duncan is. Duncan's been up and down. We don't really know where his ceiling is. So it makes this a very interesting fight. The line is creeping towards money Moicano. Chris Duncan opened up at minus 205 on Caesars. He's minus 160 now. So that's a pretty steady creep in Moicano's direction. This is a tough fight because, like I said, you've got two guys that we still don't really know how good they are. We know that they're decent. They're good enough to headline kind of a low-level UFC card at the Apex here, where there will be about 100 fans. You know what, Pat? Give me Moicano 1 unit. I think it'll be a close fight. It could be some kind of freak finish like we saw last week where suddenly the fight's over. Give me Moicano. He's been there, done that more than Duncan, but a Duncan win wouldn't shock me. That's why it's only a 1 unit bet. So, for my exact prediction, give me Moicano finds a finish in the 3rd round.
Okay. Moicano, 3rd round. 3rd round finds a finish. Is it a KO or is it a sub?
Give me a submission in the 3rd round.
Submission. Okay. And I am going with Chris Duncan by decision. It'll be quite a scrap. And I think that obviously Moicano is very well versed on the ground, very slick on the ground, as is Duncan's pretty good as well. I think they'll probably see the ground quite a bit. I think it'll be a mix of action, but I'll pick Duncan by 5-round decision. So there you go. And for anybody out there, again, who wants to win free Cell Saviors, free Diamine clothing, please place your bet. Let us know what that is before fight time starting on Saturday, and we'll get products sent out to you if you are correct. And so, again, for Cell Saviors and for Diamine clothing and my co-host, Joshua Chauvin, happy betting, bet responsibly. Do not go overboard with anything, and do not take our word as gospel. And Josh, go ahead and say one more thing.
Do you mind if I shout out public chat? We have a new guy, new fan. So Jersten says Tony Ferguson comes to mind when thinking about fighters losing that bounce. Yeah, I think that's a great analogy. That was kind of what I hit on earlier. Is they're going to let Izzy fight at least a couple more times. They let Ferguson, who you just mentioned, I think, fight 8 losses before they're finally like, okay, it's time to go, legend. So, yeah. And then his second question is, you were talking about poor management, Pat. Do you think Sage Northcutt was a victim of poor management? For those of you at home, Sage kind of bounced around the UFC, then goes to ONE FC in Japan, gets matched up with a grown man about 40 pounds bigger than him, gets knocked out so brutally he hasn't fought since.
Yeah, Cosmo Alexander was, when I saw that matchup, and look, I'm not going to criticize heavily how that all went down. I'm just going to say that when I saw that matchup was coming, because I had called Cosmo Alexander's fights in Lion Fight Muay Thai, I knew that he was a terrifying striker. And yes, a fully developed man with hundreds of fights under his belt. Putting Sage Northcutt in with him was a massive mistake. He got, facial rearrangement, broken bones, some horrible things happened to him. So yes, bad decision. So, all right. So anyway, for my co-host, Joshua Chauvin, the odds oracle, the Chauvin one, this is Pat Militich signing off for MMA Mobsters. Good luck this weekend, and we'll see you again next week, guys.
Hey. Yeah. Yeah. Hey. Giving it all. Hey. Yeah. I'm giving it all I could give. Yeah. Run up and taking my pick. Ay. Then bringing it back to the crib. Hey. Yeah. You know how I go. We finding the gold, the deeper we dig. Yeah. So we just keep digging till we finally get it. Like fuck it, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Yeah. I gave you my word, don't break it for knowing. You know I'ma keep what I said. Ready for war, I've been deep in the trance. Been thumping since I had them streaks in the bed. Ice in my body, I'm cold under pressure. Recovered like I had no heat in the vents. Shooting, I don't ever catch too much to accomplish. You know I can't leave it to chance. Yeah. Throw it in the bag. Throw some dots, I'm Jackson Dart. I'm out of pocket playing tag. Catch me if you can. Empty out the mag. Took the lead, I run the track. And I'm never looking back. Going for the moment, always rolling with the punches. Find a way to see through the ceiling, put above us. Smoke is in the air, keep it heavy in abundance. When the dust settles, let's see who remains.